Thanks for joining us again. We're looking at factorizing the difference of two squares, or using the difference of two squares. So how do we recognize the difference of two squares? Well, firstly, there are two terms. The terms are perfect squares. In other words, they have either a squared or b squared or c to the power of 4, or it's 9 or it's 16, and there is a minus sign between them. Here are some examples. So you've got two terms, minus sign between them, perfect squares. Two terms, minus sign between them, perfect squares. Can you see here x squared plus 4 is not a difference of squares because there's a plus sign in the middle. And x cubed minus 9, again, is also not a difference of squares because it's an x cubed and not an x squared. So how do we factorize a difference of two squares? Well, we write down two sets of brackets, right? And we find the square root of the first term. And we write that in the front of both brackets. We find the square root of the second term. And we write that at the back of both brackets. And we put a plus in one and a minus in the other. So here's our first example. We've got a squared minus 36. So we can see it's a minus. There's two terms, and they are both perfect squares. So we can write down the square root of a squared is a, and we just write down our brackets and write down our a. And the square root of 36 is 6. So we write down our 6's, and one bracket has a minus, and one bracket has a plus. Here we've got 49 plus y squared. So we've got two terms. They're both perfect squares, but it has a plus in the middle. So in fact, we cannot factorize this at all. So we would just actually write it as 49 plus y squared and leave it as that. You can do nothing further with this. Here we've got 3ac squared 27a. So before we try and look for a difference of squares, our first step should be to take out a common factor. And we can see that the common factor is going to be 3a. So step one, take out a common factor, write down what's left over. So we've got c squared minus 9, right? And now we can see that c squared minus 9 is a difference of squares because we've got two squares and a minus sign in the middle. So we write down our 3a, and now we write down our two brackets. Now the square root of c squared is just c, and the square root of 9 is 3, and we write down a plus in one bracket and a minus in the next, and we are all done. As you can see, it's really easy to factorize the difference of two squares. Watch our next video, which will show you how to factorize the sum and difference of cubes.